Hi, so this is take two. I'm going to make fudge this time. The reason it's take two is because the first one I'd forgotten to put the sound on halfway through, which is an absolute idiot move because it took ages to make. And obviously I can't go back and make it again without buying the ingredients and going through it again. So what I've done this time, I've already sent out the recipe. Again, the recipe is here for fudge. So if you DM me, I will definitely send out that recipe to you. So I'm just going to go through it step by step. I have all the ingredients here, which is a pan, the caster sugar, the vanilla extract. If you haven't got vanilla extract, don't worry about it, it's still going to taste good. But if you have got vanilla extract, or what's the other one? Vanilla something else. I can't remember. But the one that's more alcohol based, because this isn't alcohol based, the other one. Essence, that's it, vanilla essence. I have condensed milk, 1 tin. I also have my butter weighed out. And you know, that's cashew sugar. And what I've done here, so with the water and the golden syrup, I put them both together and warmed them a little. The reason why we have the water is so I can control the coloration and hopefully stop crystallization while I'm making my fudge. Very important that it doesn't crystallize. It can happen, and so hopefully, as I show you and the methods I show you and the order I show you, you should prevent any crystallization of your fudge. I also have a spatula and obviously a set of scales. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'm going to go over to the stove and show you how it's done. Right, here we are. Let me just get a bit of light on the situation. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to add my liquid. Have you noticed I haven't got the heat on just yet? I'm going to add my 2 liquids, which is the syrup and the water, straight in. Then I'm going to put my blocks of butter. I just put 2, just like so. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to heat it up slightly first, just to disperse the butter. Okay, so as you can see, my butter has melted with my liquids. So what I'm going to do now, this is on a low heat. Obviously I don't want to burn the butter. So yeah, very low heat, just so it's all melted. And then I'm going to add my sugar. I'm going to rain my sugar in. At this point you will need to stir a little, but what I'm trying to do is not to get it on the edges of the pan. The reason is you don't want it to crystallise and form crystals. So I'm just going to move it slightly with this, just so all the sugar is covered and soaked. Okay. See, I'm just scraping down all the sides up so nice and clean. If you see any air pockets, which can happen, and it will affect your fudge in the long run. I think they do in large vats usually, when making fudge in bigger places, but they use a massive wooden spoon to give it a good stir. But it's very important that you sort of get it all mixed in. Try and remove all the sugar from the sides. Okay, so you now got a nice little paste going on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up to the boil. I'm going to let it simmer for a short while because it will get, because there's hardly any water in it, the water will evaporate, and then it will shoot up its temperature quite fast and rapid. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to now turn up the heat, let it come to the boil. As soon as it comes to the boil, I'm going to let it simmer for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to add my condensed milk. Right, as you can see, it's come up to the boil nicely. It's been simmering for a few minutes. I'm now going to add my condensed milk. Right, so at this point, when you're adding condensed milk, you will have to stir it in just to make sure it spreads around nicely. And again, you don't want it all to hit the bottom and burn. It burns very easily. Okay. Remember, this is extremely hot. Be very, very careful. It's also very important that all the equipment that you're using is very, very clean. You don't want any contaminants. You know, always when you're cooking anyway, it should always be very clean and sanitized. But for sugar, especially, you don't want any contaminants in there, because that will have an effect on your final product. If not, it may crystallize as well. Okay, so everything at its cleanest. Okay, and especially as we're all locked in and should be being clean anyway, it's just good practice. Okay, right, so from this point, this I'm not going to use. What I want you to remember is also, I've got it on a lowish heat. I'm going to let it come up slowly to the boil, because I don't want it to catch the bottom. If it does catch the bottom a little bit, don't disturb it, because what you'll do is you'll just bring all the burnt bits to the top. Just let it, if you see it smoking, it's time to turn it off, but I'll go through that later when it starts to come up. The point we add the Madagascan vanilla extract will be a little bit later, when it's nearly finished, and I'll just add a few drops and let it come. And then what I'm going to show you also is I have my mixer, and I'm going to put it into my mixer. I'm going to beat it till it's nearly set, but I'm going to add, because people are asking if you can add things and what stages you add things. I'm going to add some white chocolate to mine, just to smoothen it out, because the fat in there will make it nice, smooth and velvety. But I'll talk through that at a later date. Hi, so I just demonstrate on how to just test it quickly. Really nice low heat. Shouldn't burn. So what I'm going to do, got cold water right next to me, which at the moment you probably can't see. No, actually, so let me just move the camera slightly. There you go. So I have, going to get that straight into the water. Okay, and then I'm just going to go in. This is the safer way of doing it. And what you'll get, if you roll it between your fingers, is a soft, so that's around soft ball. So we need to go up a few more degrees. Okay, so it's quite squidgy. Okay, delicious. Right, so for my eye, I think we're close to where we need to be, which is our firm ball. So I'm going to do the little test. Okay, I'm just going to make sure it's cold enough and give it a little move around. You can actually take it up to 122, which is hardball, but obviously you'll get a different effect. Yeah, so that is, I'm turning the heat off now. Remove it from the heat, and that's done. So now my ball is quite firm. Okay, and that's a way to test it. Right, so here I have my KitchenAid, which I absolutely love. If you haven't got a KitchenAid, you can actually do it on your tabletop surface, but you will need a scraper so you can keep moving and working, moving and working. Unfortunately, I've got a wood top, and that does tend to mark it quite a lot. So, or you can leave it, you can put it into a fresh pan and you just keep stirring it with a spatula until it's almost set. But with this one, it's better to do with powder, because what you're trying to do is just to cool it down a bit faster than it usually would. So I'm going to pour it into here. So you may see there are some little burnt bits, but I'm not worried about them. Okay, and look, see how it's caught on the bottom? If it does come up, try not to worry again too much about it. Just don't disturb it too much, because that will just beat out anyway, and it won't affect your flavour, I promise. Okay, so at this point I'm just going to add a little bit of the vanilla, and then I'm going to paddle it out. Okay, not too high, but enough to sort of incorporate some air and start to cool it down. That is very hot, and it will burn you, so be very careful. Okay, so yeah, all those, if there is some like little black bits in, they will definitely beat out. You will not see them at the final stage. Into that, I will add, I don't know if you can see, some white chocolate, which I've got some, and I will put that in about halfway through when I sort of see it start to solidify. Just so you know, I've also greased a tin lightly with a bit of vegetable oil and some tissue, and just gone round the edges. Obviously you don't want any water, obviously water and oil are completely separate, and they do separate. So no water whatsoever, and a bit of parchment paper on the bottom, just so you can lift it up once it's set. And once we've done this part and I poured it into there, I leave it to set at room temperature. No need to cover it, don't put it in the fridge because obviously sugar absorbs water, but yeah, okay. So hopefully you can sort of see this part over the noise of the machine, but you can see it's just starting to not coagulate, but to stiffen a bit, and the temperature is going down. So I'm going to wait another maybe minute before I add the white chocolate. It's going to be around 100 grams of white chocolate that's going to go into there, but this will make the fudge very smooth. It's the same with if you're going to add, maybe if you've got soaked rum and raisin, you could drop them in around that time. If you want the raisins to be whole, you drop them in a little bit later. If you don't mind them sort of being mushed up and moved around, then you'll drop them in the same time as I'm going to drop my bits in. And also, if you can put nuts in, you know, nothing water-based, hopefully, because obviously you've got fats in there that don't mix. Okay, and obviously if you drop anything water-based in there, it's eventually going to dissolve. Your rum and raisin is good because you can sort of soak them, pat them dry, and then chuck them in there. If you want to add more rum, that part will go in your cooking process with your water or what, so forth. Okay. So it's been beating for roughly 5 minutes. It has cooled down. It's still hot, but I'm going to add my my white chocolate. So 100 grams of white chocolate will go into there. This will help also cool it down quite rapidly. But you need it to melt, obviously. If you wanted chunks in there, you could do this part and then throw a few other bits in there. But as you can see it's cooling down quite rapidly, to a point where I will be stopping it very shortly. Look at that. Okay, so now you've got to be just careful of the crystallization, as we don't want it all grainy. So it's looking very nice. Right, so at this point, as you can see, it's firmed up quite nicely. Now there's different stages. If I was to pour this in now, into there, we'd get a really nice soft fudge. Let it set, it would be nice. If you want to take it a little bit further, just be careful. You can take it a little bit further, and it'll give you a bit more of a firmer fudge. But I quite like, not overly soft fudge, but something that's going to sort of melt in your mouth. And again, if you work with temperatures, if you go up to maybe 121, 122, you'll get more of a tablety sort of fudge, and it'll be more crumbly. It'll be a lot darker as well. But that's the stuff they sort of sell down in Cornwall at Granny Wobbly's. It's pretty good for their fudge. Absolutely love it. But they do it in massive vats. Okay, so we're near into the point, and I shall just demo what I'm going to pour it into. Okay, I'm now at the desired consistency that I need. Still very warm, so I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to move this. Obviously scrape down. Don't want to waste a single part of that fudge. Okay, and I can feel it's already, if it's not sticking to my spatula, it's in a good place. Like me right now. Okay, so a nice scrape down. You can give this to Lucas, I'm sure he'd like to finish that off, obviously when it's a bit cooler. And there you go. We won't scrape it all because I can see somebody like that. Right, so what I will do is just scrape the edges down before I pour it into the tray. Okay. And here we go. And you know what? Let me just move that. That's probably better. And in it goes. So it will set quite fast. So you do have to work at a little bit of pace. Or you can also leave it as is, and then you can just break it up or cut it into chunks later. Okay. Right. So that's that. And then with my hand, very clean hands. I'm just going to pat it down into the shape of the tray. Okay. So, and then we just smooth it off so it doesn't look like I've got loads of fingerprints in it. Okay. So again, we're working with heat here. They always say chefs have asbestos fingers, but it's not going to burn your fingers when you at this stage, because they have a good chance to cool down. Okay, and that is basically it. So we have our fudge in our tray. I'm going to let it cool, and then when it's ready, I'll cut it and we can share it. Well, Lucas and I will share it. You won't get any. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope that was insightful, and you got a good understanding of how to make fudge. It is pretty self-explanatory. You just have to look at your timings and try not to burn it, which is the very difficult part. I like to also say, please stay safe. When you go, if you are having to travel out and get produce, wash your hands, be clean, and look after your family. That's the most important. So hopefully tomorrow we're going to look at making savoury scones, because I do love a bit of cheesy, savoury goodness. Thank you.